Praise be to the holy name of the Lord. So I thank God for again giving me this opportunity. So we were looking from Genesis 37 to 50, the overview. So can someone just summarize like what we studied in the previous two studies? So who is the hero of this context? Judah. Okay. God is the supreme. So how God is working for Judah. What was the purpose? Why God is protecting Judah? So the Savior will be in the lineage of Judah. Okay. And so the God's chosen people, will they have their life smooth always, or how like a Jacob, Joseph life, how it was going? So they were going through like a different persecutions. Even though they like a Joseph case, he was like a sinless, or he was not the cause for to be in a pit or to be in the prison. But when God works out His mission through us and in us, so He has every right to take us through the way that He purposed it. It is not the way that we want Him to work, okay, but He will take us through. And not only He will take us through, in Joseph's life, we saw that God was with him. Okay. So in several passages we read, since God was with him, he prospered. Since God was with him, he was able to accomplish all the tasks that has been given by either Potiphar or the Pharaoh. Okay, and what else we saw? And God will work on His appointed time. Okay, so it is not Joseph's time, but God will work on His appointed time. Okay, till such time, God sovereignly will make others to forget the good things that we render to them. Okay, but when the time comes, we can clearly see how God is working with the others to favor us in such way that we are part of His mission. Okay, and then like Jacob's case, okay, it is not that Jacob was good so that God chose him, but God has determined it, and for the one He determined, He will accomplish the sanctification. So He will allow Jacob to go through various challenges, and He will teach him. He will like help him to understand his problem, and then like a sanctification is happening so that he becomes the one who is accomplishing the will of God. Okay, so those things we saw. Now I think we stopped at chapter 47. Okay, so 46 we finished. Okay, so up to 46, like now is brought by God in all the aspects, like when Benjamin was supposed to be punished, or instead of, or how he is playing the kind of substitution. Okay, so we saw in Joseph's life, Jacob's life, and then Judah's life, how they are exhibiting the coming Christ character. Okay, so they are not the like role models. Christ is the role model, and Christ is the supreme in all divine natures. But they have been enabled to showcase those characters in advance in the Old Testament itself. Okay, so those things we saw, and so the 46 we stopped at when they went back to when Israel went to Egypt. Okay, how they have been received, and even though in the last words we saw 46:34, even though every shepherd is a loathsome to Egyptians, but how God brought a favor for them in the sight of Pharaoh. In 47, okay, so it starts Joseph was he was telling Pharaoh that his brothers, his father, and all the households are came from Canaan to the Egypt. And in verse 4, they said to Pharaoh, Pharaoh was asking in verse 3, what is your occupation? Okay, in verse 3, the middle passage we can see what is your occupation. Okay, and then in verse 4, they were saying that we have come to sojourn in the land. Okay, this term sojourn we can find in this chapter itself, in verse 4 and then verse 9. Okay, in verse 9 it is mentioned twice. Okay, so in verse 4 they were saying we have come to sojourn in the land. So which means they have not moved to Egypt to stay there and to settle there, but in accordance to the will of God, or in accordance to the prophecy which was said to Abraham. Okay, so God has brought his descendants to Egypt, and they are going to be there as a sojourners for 400 years or 430 years. Okay, because that we can see how Jacob or how Joseph was saying that God will take them back to the promised land. Okay, so that we can see, and we need to understand that the God's elect or the God's believers, God will not allow us to settle in our hometown. Okay, we can see many evidences here itself. Gargi uncle, you can see he has moved from Kerala. Similarly, Leslie and I, we can see. So Rakesh brother. So in his wisdom and in his sovereign plan, okay, God will make us to move. That it is not that we wish the and we come here. Okay, so God has appointed and God knows what He is going to accomplish. So let's just read one word from Isaiah 46. Isaiah 46:10. Declaring the end from the beginning. So, nothing will be surprise to God. Nothing will bring chaos to God. Okay, so God knows the end. He declared the end. Okay, from the beginning and from ancient times, things which have not been done, even the things that are going to accomplish in the future. Okay, He is the God since ancient times. So from the beginning to the end, He is doing it, saying, "My purpose will be established, and I will accomplish all my good pleasure." So whatever pleases God, okay, in Psalms 115, I believe. Let's check that. One and five, three. But our God is in the heavens. He does whatever He pleases. Okay, and there is one more passage also. It's saying that He does His will in the land, in the debts. Okay. Uh, in, okay. We will go back to Genesis 47. Okay. So the reason for Jacob's descendants or Abraham descendants sojourning in the Egypt is it is in accordance to the will of God. So God is going to accomplish his promise which was given to Abraham. Okay, and then in verse 6 we can see like even though there was a severe famine, in 4 itself it is there now. In 4 itself, the second phrase it says, for the famine is severe in the land of Canaan. Okay, so since the famine was severe, God has brought them as a sojourners. Okay, but when God took them to Egypt, okay, you see in verse 6, the Pharaoh was saying, like, settle your father and your brothers in the best of the land. You can see twice, one more time that we will see, like how God providentially working through the Gentile king or the like through the Egyptian king, like God is providing the best of the land to protect his descendants or the seed of the woman. Okay, and then in verse 9, okay, now Jacob has been brought to Pharaoh, and Jacob was blessing Pharaoh. In verse 9, like in 8, the Pharaoh was asking, how many years have you lived? Okay, and let us see the answer in verse 9. So Jacob said to Pharaoh, the years of my sojourning are 130. Just imagine 130 years he was a sojourner. He was not settled anywhere. Okay. So, how will we experience or how we uh, like if that happens to us, what will be our conclusion or what we will think? Because that we can see like we'll see later in Hebrews, the hall of faith or the list which talks about the Old Testament faith believers, like how they were looking for the kingdom that is going to come. Okay, so here he says the years of my sojourning are 130. So let us think that if God is not allowing to settle us, let us understand that God is working his purpose in us. Okay, maybe difficult to say and difficult to experience, but that is what the Bible says. So, and then the second phrase, he says, a few and unpleasant have been the years of my life. Even before birth, Rachel was like a promise, and after that also he got many blessings. Okay, but he says, my life, it has been unpleasant, have been the years of my life. So, in the chosen believer's life, it might be unpleasant. For us, it might be unpleasant, but we need to know in Jacob's life, God was doing his sanctification. God has promised that he will bring the seed of woman and he will bless all the nations through his seed. Okay, but it might be unpleasant. Okay, so we should be prepared for that. And then, like, if we keep on going, verse 12, like Joseph was providing everything to his father and his brother. Verse 13, now there was no food in all the land. Okay, so from this verse you can see parallelly the author Moses is bringing the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan. But when it comes to 15, how it is differentiated, we will see. Okay, so in verse 13 it says, now there was no food in all the land because of famine was severe. Okay, so that the land of Egypt and that the land of Canaan, land is because of the famine. So people like it could have become like a Somalia, okay, Sudan or those countries. But there was a severe famine, and in 14, Joseph gathered all the money that was found in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan. So which makes sense that even from the Canaan, not only Jacob's family, those who were residing there also, they came here, they gave money, all of their money, okay, because that's what the verse 14 says. All the money that was found in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, they gave it, and they bought grains from Joseph. In verse 15, when the money was all spent in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, now just see, all the Egyptians came to Joseph. Okay, so now the all the land of Canaan, probably the people, those who are living in Canaan, they have been ignored. But the concentration or the focus is, it impliedly says that the people or the 75 people, those who came from Canaan, Jacob's family, they have been protected. Okay. So that is why all the Egyptians came to Joseph. It doesn't mention all the people from Canaan also came to Joseph. So God providentially brought them and put them in favor of getting the food and living for the long life. Okay. And then in verse 20 also we can see how the famine was severe. Okay. And then okay. In 29, like a 28, Jacob lived in the land of Egypt 17 years. So the length of Jacob's life was 147 years. When the time of Israel to die drew near, he called his son Joseph and said to him, please, if I have found favor in your sight, place now your hands under my thigh and deal with me in kindness and faithfulness. Please do not bury me in the Egypt. The same thing, even when Joseph was talking to his brothers in chapter 50, okay, he is mentioning the same. You can see verse 24 of 50. Joseph said to his brothers, I am about to die, but God will surely take care of you and bring you out from this land to the land which he promised on oath to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. Then Joseph made the sons of Israel swear, saying, God will surely take care of you, and you shall carry my bones up from here. So see how they are keen in going back to the promised land. Okay, so when Joseph died, so when Jacob was about to die, he called his son Joseph, because in chapter 40, when he was told that Jacob was living, so sorry, Joseph was living. Okay, 46. Okay, in 46, second verse 2 and 3. Okay, let us read verse 4 directly. I will go down with you to Egypt, and I will also surely bring you up again, and Joseph will close your eyes. So Jacob knows how he is going to die and who will bury him and where he will be buried, because God has told him that I will bring you, I will also surely bring you up again. Okay, so that is what he is telling his son Joseph. So ensure that do not bury me in the land of Egypt. Okay, so the same Joseph was repeating to the Israelites, and when Moses was taking the Israelites back from Egypt, they took the bones of Joseph from the Egypt. Okay, I'm not sure, like there is one verse in Matthew, like when Jesus resurrected, I hear this, I'm not sure, but I want to just mention. One brother, I heard from him, why like Joseph and Jacob, they were keen to go back and to be buried in the place where Abraham bought or nearby the Jerusalem is. Uh, I'm not sure, but he quoted this passage like in 27. Um, like when Jesus resurrected, there were tombs open. Na? I think it is in Matthew. Huh? Okay. The tombs were open, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. And coming out of the tombs after his resurrection, they entered the holy city and appeared to many. But this incident was mentioned only in one gospel. Okay, it is only mentioned in Matthew's gospel. So this could be the reason why, like Jacob or Joseph, they want to be buried in the promised land. Okay, so they want to be near and so that they can visit. So I'm not sure. So that's what they said. Okay, let us move on to next chapter. Chapter 48. Okay, one thing that I want to mention. Okay, in this, please do not bury me. Like in Hebrew 11 also, we could see in many verses how the faith believers or how they want to uh, heroes of faith. Okay, just we will read verse 24. It talks about Moses. Okay, from 24 to 29, it talks about Moses. Okay, so by faith, Moses, when he had grown up, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter. So basically, when the faith or when he grown up, Moses made up his mind that he is not belongs to. So God has promised my forefather Abraham. God has promised Isaac. God has promised Jacob. Even Joseph also told that we are not the settlers. We are sojourners in Egypt. Okay. And he made up his mind that he is no more want to be called as a Pharaoh's daughter. And 25, choosing rather to endure ill treatment. So that is what Jacob was also saying. Like his life was unpleasant. Okay. Even Joseph's life was unpleasant. Okay. So he says, choosing rather to endure ill treatment with the people of God than to enjoying the passing pleasures of sin. So Moses is making it. This is a vain. Okay. So this is a passing pleasure, and it is a pleasure of sin. Okay. And then he's 27. By faith he left Egypt, not fearing the wrath of the king. When we read in Exodus, we might come to an assumption because of the fear he flew to Midian. But the Hebrew author says, not because of the fear, he has determined, okay, and by faith he left Egypt because he knows God is going to use him, and the Israelites from the slavery of Egypt, they will be taken back to Canaan, and God is going to use Moses. Okay, so by faith he left Egypt, not fearing the wrath of king. So the important thing is that the heroes of the faith, they are sojourners. They were sojourners. They don't want to settle in Egypt. So similar for us, this world is Egypt. We are sojourners here, and like we sing the lost song, we are waiting for the trumpet. Okay, so as Paul says in 1 Thessalonians 4, so if we live before the coming of the Lord, we will be there. Or if the Lord comes, obviously in a twinkling on an eye, we will be there. Okay, so we are sojourners here. That we need to understand. Okay, and then in chapter 48, 3, then Jacob said to Joseph, like he is briefing. Okay, he is briefing. God Almighty appeared to me at Luz in the land of Canaan and blessed me. And he said to me, so he says that God said to me, behold, I will make you fruitful and numerous. Just think, being in a slavery country, how this promise can come true. God has promised, behold, I will make you fruitful and numerous, and I will make you a company of peoples, and will give this land to your descendants after you for an everlasting possession. Okay, so just think, when this famine is severe, when things are not in favor, how this can happen. If we read Exodus chapter 1, this week I was reading Exodus, and then like Exodus 1:7. But the sons of Israel, in this verses, you will see like there are adverbs, adjectives, how God or how the inspired author is talking about how God is making them to be fruitful, be multiplied. But the sons of Israel were fruitful. Again, it says, and increased greatly. Again, it uses and multiplied. This is the third word. And became exceedingly mighty. In a slavery country, when God is working, okay, just see how even in a famine or when they settled in the 430 years of time period, how Israel were made fruitful, increased greatly, multiplied, and become exceedingly mighty, so that the land was filled with them. So the whole of the Egypt was filled with Israelites. Okay, so that is what the promise, and the one who promised, he is able to fulfill his promise. Situations are not it cannot bother him. Okay, so if we turn to 48:9, okay, so how Joseph has been blessed, and then in verse 10, now the eyes of Israel were so dim from the age that he could not see. Like in a similar situation when Isaac was there, he cheated his father. But this time he knowingly blessed Ephraim. Okay, so that we could see instead of Manasseh, how he blesses Ephraim, that we can see. And we'll go to chapter 49. Chapter 49 is a chapter where, like, when Jacob knows that his time is near, so he was blessing his sons. Okay, in for chapter 49, verse 1, then Jacob summoned his sons and said, assemble yourselves, that I may tell you what will befall you in the days to come. So just see how God has blessed Jacob in such a way that he can foretell how God is going to work with the people group. Okay. So our primary would be like verse 8 to 12. Okay. So how Judah is important. Okay. So here Jacob was blessing Judah. In verse 8 it says, Judah, your brothers shall praise you. Okay, we may not be sure whether that has happened to Judah when he lived in this world, but we can understand from the life of David, okay, from the life of Solomon, and there were many kings, Hezekiah, those kings, those who were pleasing to God, they were from the lineage of Judah, okay, and they were more powerful people, okay, and they were blessed by the people. But primarily, even though it talks about David, Judah, David, Solomon, or the even before Caleb, those people, but primarily this talks about that the prices will be for the Christ. It is kind of a messianic prophecy that Jacob was talking to Judah. Okay, and then in 8 second phrase, he says, "Your hand shall be on the neck of your enemies." So recently we saw Daniel. Okay, in Daniel chapter 2, we saw the vision of Nebuchadnezzar. In that vision, he saw a statue, golden statue, and then in the last, what is happening? Let us turn to Daniel. Verse 44. In the days of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom which will never be destroyed. Which will never be destroyed. So, God is talking about the kingdom which is an everlasting kingdom. And in Psalms also, Psalms 2 also, we will come back. Okay. Here it says kingdom which will never be destroyed, and that kingdom will not be left for another people. It is for his people. Okay. And then it will crush and put an end to all these kingdoms, but it will itself endure forever. Inasmuch as you saw that a stone was cut off of the mountain without hands, and that it crushed the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold. The great God has made known to the king what will take place in the future. So the dream is true, and its interpretation is trustworthy. So Daniel was saying that the kingdom of Christ is going to be established, and none can stop. People can say by 2030 or 2021, Christians will be removed, or the reason there is one issue is going on, eradication word. Okay, so there are so many people told for last 2000 years. Okay, but the God is sovereignly working on his kingdom. It is not now, before the creation of the world, in the eternity past, God has designed everything and he is working on it. Okay, so we'll get back to Genesis 49. Okay, your hand shall be on the neck of your enemies. Even this has been promised, like the similar, we can see Genesis 3, he will crush your head. So nothing can overcome the kingdom of Christ. Okay, so that we need to understand. And your father's son shall bow down to you. And in verse 9, Judah is defined like the lion's whelp, like a cub, and then he couches, he lies down as a lion, and then underline. So these three Hebrew words, the one is talking about a cub, and the second talks about the like a what do you say, like a youth or a strong lion, and the third young lion, young lion, and the third one talks about a lioness. Okay, so it is talking about that how Judah will be a powerful. And then in 10, it is prophesying until Shiloh comes. Like in Tamil Bible, it says Tattar Varumalavum. So in NASB, it says until Shiloh comes. So until the Christ or until the Messiah comes, the scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the ruler start from between his feet. So we might think that when Saul was made as a king, that was not the preference of God. Okay, because in Romans, I think in Romans, not in Romans, in Hosea, you ask for a king, I gave a wicked king. It comes in Hosea. So Saul was not the preference of God. Okay, God's preference was Judah. God's preference was to bring David. But since people have asked for a king, that's what Samuel says. So you are rejecting God and as your king, and you are asking for a king. They could have asked for a king, because even for Moses, it has been prophesied that they will ask for a king, okay, and how the king should be. But they ask for a king like other people. So they don't want to work on the way that God was working. So that's why God has given them the wicked king. But here he talks about the scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the ruler staff from between his feet. So that is what we see in the lineage which Matthew was mentioning, how he is connecting from Abraham to David, David to Joseph. Okay, so all are in the tribe of Judah. Okay, the lineage of Judah, and then the other blessings are there. Okay, we will see. And then there is a blessing which is talked about Joseph. So the Joseph blessings are like a temporary. Okay, but the blessings that which were given to Judah, those are like everlasting, because those are prophecies about Messiah. Okay, let us go to chapter 50. Okay, let us go to chapter 50. Okay, so chapter 50, we will start from 15. Okay, so after they have buried Jacob, they came back to Egypt. Okay, in verse 15, it starts like this. When Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, what if Joseph bears a grudge against us and pays us back in full for all the wrong which we did to him? We can see how Joseph is exhibiting the character of Christ. Even though we were sinners, we sinned against God, but how graciously, okay, Christ forgiven our sin, God forgiven our sins, that we can see. Okay, so all his brothers were saying, what if Joseph bears a grudge against us and pays us back in full, not in partial? They were in an assumption that he is going to pay full, okay, for all the wrong which we did to him. Okay, and then they were saying, so they sent a message to Joseph. Okay, your father charged before he died, saying, before Jacob died, Jacob called twice Joseph. He could have directly told Joseph, hey, just forgive your brothers, don't do all these things. So, but they were saying that your father charged before he died, saying, so they didn't say your father requested. So they want to make more sense to Joseph, or to give an emphasis. They made your father charge you, so he has commanded you. Please ensure that you forgive us. Okay. In 17 they say, thus you shall say to Joseph, please forgive, I beg you, the transgressions of your brothers and their sin, for they did you wrong. And now please forgive the transgressions of the servants of the God of your father. So when Joseph heard this, Joseph wept when they spoke to him. So now we will see what was the response from Joseph. Then his brothers also came and fell down before him and said, behold, we are your servants. So we will see from verse 19. But Joseph said to them, do not be afraid, for am I in God's place? In the Sermon on Mount, we see the first beatitude. Just let us read 5, Matthew 5. Those who are humble, poor in spirit, or humble in spirit. 3. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. So even though he is next to king, and he has passed through persecutions because of his own brothers, he has every reason to punish his brothers. Okay, but he says, it is not my duty. Okay, so it is, he says, do not be afraid, for am I in God's place? I'm not the God. Okay, so he says, 20, as per you, you meant evil against me. Your intention was to do or was to destroy your own brother, so that how come the dreams come true? So your intent or you meant it for evil, but God meant it for good in order to bring this present result. So the present result was to preserve, preserve the people. When God found the whole earth was sinning, but God preserved Noah and his family. It is not that Noah was good. The verse, we'll read that verse so that we will understand which precedes. Okay, verse 8. Genesis 6, 6, I think 6 we can read, or from 5 we can read. Then the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great on the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. The Lord was sorry that he made man on the earth, and he was grieved in his heart. The Lord said, I will blot out man whom I have created from the face of the land, from man to animals to creeping things, unto the birds of the sky, for I am sorry that I have made them. But verse 8 starts, but Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. So that is the preceding. It is not that because Noah walked the good, that is not the precedence. The precedence is he found a favor in the sight of the Lord. Okay, so that is what we need to understand. Okay, so here coming back to chapter 50, verse 20. Okay, Joseph is briefing to his brothers, even though you meant it for evil against me, but God sovereignly works on his plan. He had a purpose. Okay, he had a purpose in our life to bring us into this world, to bring us sojourners into this city, to bring us into this country, to bring us in a particular family, in a particular relationship, in a particular congregation. God has a purpose. Okay. Probably even in our promotions or in our workplaces, our bosses may meant it for evil. But we need to understand that the God we worship, he controls everything. He knows the end. He allows them to make the mistakes. But at the end, he will accomplish his good pleasure will come true. Nothing can stop him, nothing can thwart him. Okay. So in 20 verse it says, as far as you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good in order to bring about this present result. What is the present result? To preserve many people alive. Okay, so God is working on a missional community in the Old Testament, the community Israel. Okay, so that even after multiple exiles, okay, the remnant has been kept safe. So that in the lineage of Judah, Christ has to come so that he can die for our sins. He can pay the penalty for us so that we can be saved from the wrath of God and we can be with God for eternity in the eternal future. Okay. So God has a purpose and God has purpose to preserve many people to life. Okay. Alive. And then he says, so therefore do not be afraid. And he comforted and spoke kindly to them. Okay, we will come to the last verses, 24. Joseph said to his brother, I am about to die, but God will surely. So see their faith. Okay, so the Yahweh that who promised to Abraham, to Isaac, to Jacob, that they will go back to their promised land. Okay, so he says, but God will surely, even the situations are not good, even the king who is not known to Joseph, he might try to kill all the because in chapter 1 of Exodus we can see the ways and means that Satan was using Pharaoh to reduce or to afflict the people of God. Okay, so in verse 11 we can see, in verse 10 Pharaoh was saying, come, let us deal wisely with them. Their wiseness, it is not going to help them. Okay, they are bound to do the will of God. The present politicians, okay, they might think they are mightier, okay, but they are born to do the will of God. Whatever the thing that they are passing as a rule or bringing persecutions to the church, everything will work towards His will. In finally, God will accomplish His will. Okay, so that we need to see. So he says, God will surely take care of you and bring you up from this land to the land which he promised on oath to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. Okay, in 25 he says, then Joseph made the sons of Israel serving him, saying, God will surely take care of you, and you shall carry my bones up from there. So, and then finally they brought it back to Israel. So, in this chapters from 37 to 50, we can see how God sovereignly working for His mission. It is not in Old Testament alone. Okay, even in the intertestamental period, okay, like from Malachi to Matthew, we were thinking that God was not in action. Okay, okay, but God was in action. Okay, to bring Messiah, to bring Rome. Okay, to bring the I think until the capital punishment, so that the Messiah can be hanged on the cross. So God was working in the fallen men to accomplish the will of God. Okay, so not only in Old Testament, until even after in the eternity future also, God is unstoppable. God will accomplish whatever that pleases to Him. Okay, so that we need to understand. And then the one attachment that I sent to you, it was developed by one of my brother Nirmal. So you can compare how Joseph's life incidents are exhibiting in advance, typically like how Christ is going to suffer. So that you can find. That's all. Thank you.